Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. My name is DJ Woldridge, and I am very excited to discuss this next movie. My co-host Roxy Strider and I got a chance to check out Wonder Woman 1984 early, so this is our spoiler-free review. Now, if you want our full deep dive spoiler discussion, stay tuned to the podcast next Monday, or get that as part of the full Only Stupid Answers show dropping later this week at patreon.com/Only Stupid Answers. We're not only discussing Wonder Woman, where we're discussing all the biggest news stories of the year. It's going to be a blast. If you're not already part of the Patreon, it's a wonderful community and it helps keep the lights on here. So I highly recommend you go check that out. But now, if you just want a little taste, a little sample of what you can expect from Wonder Woman 1984, this is our spoiler-free discussion. The synopsis is: fast forward to the 1980s as Wonder Woman's next big screen adventure finds her facing two all-new foes, Max Lord and the Cheetah. This movie is directed by Patty Jenkins and written by Patty Jenkins, Geoff Johns, and Dave Callaham. Of course, it's starring Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, Kristen Wiig, Pedro Pascal, Robin Wright, and Connie Nielsen. And on Rotten Tomatoes right now, the critics' consensus is great hero. Wonder Woman 1984 is an epic dose of heart and vibrant escapism that proves there are still unexpected thrills to be found in superhero cinema. And it has an 84% on the tomato meter. There's no audience score yet. So, Roxy, before we dive into all the spoilers, all that stuff, let's keep it spoiler free.
All right. My spoiler-free thoughts are this, and I feel like I do need to give a little background. Wonder Woman, the first one, was so mind-blowingly beautiful to me that it actually changed my life. Like, that movie to me is such a big deal, and exactly why movies are bigger than just movies. Its outlook on the world. I cry every time I watch that movie, multiple parts. I love the messaging of that film. I think it's for me the third best superhero film ever made, and it's a top movie for me ever. So I say that to say that going into Wonder Woman 1984, I had to tell myself this movie is not, don't think of this as that 2.0. Think of this as a new superhero movie.
Yeah.
Because that's too high to go into it with. It's just too high. So after watching this movie, I've seen it twice now. I think that it is a really good, solid film. It doesn't do the same thing for me, not even close, that the first one did.
Yeah.
But it still has the same characters or some of them, and it still has the same director. So it still has messages and heart and scenes that blow your mind and things that make you really excited to root for. And it does do a lot of things that great films do. Just overall, it had some problems. And the number one problem for me, and I won't get into spoilers here, but was the fact that this wasn't my favorite premise.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think I agree with pretty much your perspective on it. I do have to ask you, what are the other two superhero movies?
My first one is Dark Knight. My second one is Infinity War.
Okay.
I don't think
Infinity War over Endgame?
Yeah, I think that I also like Wonder Woman better than I like Infinity War. I just think what Infinity War was able to do is so mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That it deserves to be there. Endgame is my top 10 as well, and I love Endgame, but Infinity War. But this is any given year. Ask me again next year. Wonder Woman might move up a slot.
I totally agree with that. And watching Wonder Woman, the first one, like there's scenes that I still get emotional, and it was still like it's one of the few times, as much as I love this genre, it's one of the few times where a superhero movie just felt like a movie. Like, it didn't necessarily need the superhero thing. It felt like a throwback to back in the day, like in the Christopher Reeve Superman films, where it's like you couldn't rely on the fact that this was the most successful genre in the world. You had to actually make a movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you that it's so high up there, and so the expectations are so high. And I think, going back to the Dark Knight example, I think in some ways Patty Jenkins was trying to make a different movie, and that, I think she succeeded in that, but it's not necessarily a movie I'm as excited about, because it felt in some ways kind of like an 80s fish out of water comedy in a lot of ways. And so in that, even though that is enjoyable, it doesn't have the scope or the scale that or like the heightened sense of feeling that the original had, which, like you mentioned, is not necessarily a problem. It's just different. I will say about the premise, and of course we won't get too many into spoilers, I do like that this movie, its finale does not rely on an invading army or a beam out of the sky or Wonder Woman to punch evil into the abyss. It relies on a much more humanistic resolution, and it's a more complex. Even though some of the ways that the threat escalates are a little wonky, it requires something more from Wonder Woman than just her ability to punch real hard.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We see different layers. One of the best parts of the movie is Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot is like the most perfect cast person, and she's the star of this movie. So we still have that.
Yeah.
And so that carries the whole film because to me, she is just the most lovable, endearing, badass, strong, sensitive, sweet, considerate, like all the things that you hope for in a lead. She is. So there's always that. So there's not really, it's not like some of these other movies where I don't love the character as much. So the movie has to be phenomenal. Kind of like a Thor, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's not like you put Thor in anything and I'm like, well, I love it because I love Thor.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, we really need this movie to be great because the character Thor is totally good. It's nothing to do with, but it's not the same thing as like, oh, you could put Gal Gadot in anything and I would just be like, wow, I want to watch this.
Yeah.
So in that way, we're kind of always a little bit safe.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they took a big risk here with the premise. They did something that I was not expecting. I just don't know that risk was worth the reward.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And obviously, we'll get more of that in spoilers. And if you're not listening to this podcast, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can listen to our spoiler discussion following Monday or on patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. So again, to not get into spoilers, and I feel vaguely blasphemous saying this because of how great their dynamic is in this movie and was in the first movie. I actually feel like bringing Chris Pine back is to the detriment of the film because it doesn't give us an opportunity to flesh out Diana's relationships with other people, specifically Kristen Wiig as Barbara Minerva. I think that's great casting. I know people, because of Patty Jenkins' history, people were thinking maybe Charlize Theron. And as amazing as Charlize Theron is, one, she might be taller than Gal Gadot, but two, I don't know that the transformation of the mousy nerd to Cheetah, I don't know if I would have been able to disconnect what I relate to in Charlize Theron enough to be like, no, Furios is not this nerd. I don't buy that. Like, you know what I mean? So I think Kristen Wiig is perfectly cast in this, and I would have liked to have seen their dynamic more. I would like to see more of that dynamic.
She was perfectly cast. I agree. I think that she's an underrated performer of our time. She's really, really talented. But here's the thing, and I actually, just physically, I don't think you can put anybody next. I don't think you can put a single person next to Gal Gadot and your eyes don't go to Gal. And I think that means that we could have cast a lot of different people as Cheetah because, like, Gal is probably the most beautiful, striking woman on the planet. Mm-hmm. She just has when we grew up and they're like, kid, you got it. She's got it.
Yes.
And so I think that this was great casting. And I think everybody around her, honestly, was pretty good casting. I think Pedro Pascal was good casting. I obviously think that Chris Pine was good casting. I think that, well, those are pretty much all the people in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a huge breadth of characters. What did you think about Chris Pine's return?
Where are we in the spoiler talk of this?
Right now, we're still spoil. Do we want to wait till we get into spoilers for that?
I don't know how to. Here's what I will say. I'll just, instead of talking about his return, I'll talk about the fact that he's in the movie because people know he's in the movie.
Yeah.
how I feel about that is it was some of my favorite stuff of the movie.
Okay. Yeah,
I
that's fair.
really loved the Chris Pine stuff.
Yeah.
What they did with Chris Pine totally worked for me. I was incredibly concerned coming into this that was going to be the reason that I walked away from the movie like bummer, and it super duper wasn't. It really, really hit home for me, and so I don't know whether to attribute that to him as an actor or just when in the story he fell or what, but that stuff worked.
So, for just some comic book information for the kids at home, Barbara Minerva is actually the third cheetah in the comics. Her first appearance was Wonder Woman Volume 2, number 7 in 1987. She was created by Len Wein, who created a ton of characters, and George Perez. And Maxwell Lord's first appearance, it was in Justice League number 1 in 1987. He was created by Keith Giffen, J.M. DeMatteis, and Kevin Maguire. And they do interesting things with his they do interesting things with Maxwell Lord that echo things from the comics while not being exactly that. So, Roxy, before we get out of the spoiler-free zone, if you had to rate this movie out of the classic 1,984, what would you give it?
I'm so not sure yet. I'm so not sure yet. I what would be a B on that scale?
1,984, maybe
Maybe
1,200.
like 1,200?
Yeah, 1,200. We're math people. That's probably about right. Don't correct us in the comments.
Could be like closer to 14. I don't know. Where are you, DJ?
I am probably a B minus. I would like to take a second to. I'm looking forward to watching again, probably on Christmas Day, if not the day after, because I did enjoy it. It is tough to gauge it off of the first movie and the expectations there. And I hate to be that person to let my expectations cloud my judgment, but but the first one meant a lot to me. This one is just a fun movie. All right, those were our spoiler-free thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984. Let us know in the comments down below what you are most excited to see in the upcoming sequel. Again, if you'd like the full spoiler-filled discussion where we dive into every nook and cranny of the movie, stay tuned to next Monday's podcast or listen to it as part of the wider discussion on this week's Only Stupid Answer show, which is dropping exclusively at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers later this week. Stay tuned for that. Please like this video. Please subscribe. Please share. And thank you all for a wonderful year. All right, it's been a challenging year, but thank you all for being one of the few bright spots this year. It's been great being able to discuss these movies and shows with you all. And we've got exciting things planned for 2021. And I'll see you all next year.